So I was fishing at Daggertooth Outpost when I finally caught something, yes sir. But to my disappointment, that something was just an old man. But not any old man, no. The old man who was fishing with his bare hands as a side job to make some coins. Me though, I was just hungry, and my side job was being a part-time jailer. However, that's another story for another time. Somehow, fate reunited the old man and I once again. But to our great regret, it seemed that neither of us were successful at catching those scaly creatures. You see, the old man was too slow with his hands, and I wasn't using any baits. That was the problem, supposedly. And so, as I was staring at the poor old soul in the water, I thought, what if I used the old man as a bait? But he didn't seem to agree for some reason. Then I thought, what if we combined our minds to, be more successful at catching fishes, for instance, and we would sell them and split our gains evenly. Of course. But first, I had to quit my part-time jailer job. Come on, everybody out. So what's the best and fastest way to fish fishes? Well, black powder, obviously. You see, one time when I was trying to remove the water from Mermaid's Hideaway using explosive kegs, back when I had my landscaping side job, I noticed that every time I did it, dead fishes would rise up to the surface. So we needed kegs. Lots of kegs. But where in fact do you get explosive kegs? Well, I don't know, but I happen to know a guy who knew a guy who knew a guy who knew a guy who knew a guy who... So there was Georgina from Sanctuary Outpost, whose husband, Robert, had a sister called Ursula, who had a friend, Bill, who also had a friend named Steven. Steven spelled with PH for some reason, and Steven spelled with PH knew a guy called Ricardo, whose very distant cousin Gunther was friends with the Oliver twins. They are both named Oliver, but to differentiate them, one is called Ollie and the other one is called Oliver. But who was Ollie and who was Oliver? And the twins knew a Dorothy who was in the black powder business. Pretty simple, right? So we bought 2 kegs from her. So we bought 1 keg from her, and we went on our way to collect our sticky and slimy prizes. Did you know that I was once a part-time anchor for a galleon? After we found the proper spot to fish, well, we just had to light the fuse, eh? I mean, it worked. A bit too well, though. Maybe we shouldn't have done that right next to the ship. Maybe, but the results were there. And we sold those results, not for much, unfortunately. Also, I kept the old man's half of the sale, just in case he needed it later. But even with that small reward, we started to dream big. There's always a bigger fish. You see, you cannot satiate the hunger of the hunter who hunts for gold. Maybe because the hunter who hunts for gold shouldn't sell what he hunted. But then he wouldn't have gold, and if he doesn't have gold, well, he can't eat. But if he sells what he hunted, that means he cannot eat either. Well, I don't know where I'm going with that, but we thought the bigger the fish, the bigger the reward. And what's bigger than a megalodon? I don't know, a galleon maybe. But I don't know if you could eat a galleon. Or maybe you could, with some grubs and a good red wine. But neither of us knew how to kill a megalodon. So we went to Port Merrick to ask, Merrick how to kill a megalodon. But he was a statue, and statues can't talk, even after we try to communicate with it. So obviously we asked Madame Olga if she could talk to statues, and no. Well, she can talk to old skulls, but statues? Nah, make that make sense, Did you know that I was almost a full-time statue once? Not discouraged though. We asked the locals if they saw a megalodon recently. And yes, apparently there was one roaming between V7 and Devil's Rage. So we sailed there, and I politely asked the old man to be used as a bait. And without a second thought, he accepted. He would just have to swim back to the ship real fast if the Meg showed up. And I had no doubts in his swimming capacities. And so we waited, and waited, and waited, and waited. Until we saw a large fin emerge from the water. However, I cannot really describe what happened next, but it seemed the megalodon attacked my ship for some reason, and while doing so, it just ate the old man, who was in the way, I guess. And this primal reaction made me fall off my ship. I then thought my fate was sealed, but it seemed the megalodon was after my galleon, which was sailing away from me. Maybe she was scared, I don't know. But that's how I swam here to this island. So what about you? What are you doing here exactly? Did you know that I am actually a part-time cult member of the Great Mighty Borgald cult? Oh, well.